Oregon, November, 38. I returned to a small coastal town in Oregon after more than 2 decades away to take care of my mother's funeral. The old house, which I once called home, was now a cold concrete block covered in the dust of time. The sky was gray, the clouds heavy as if about to rain. The sea breeze blew through the broken windows, creating a hissing sound like a sigh of the past. I opened the rotten wooden door and stepped inside. The smell of mold, the smell of time and memory, filled my nose. Each step on the wooden floor creaked, like the whisper of buried memories. I began to clean up, preparing for a simple memorial service. In the process, I found a small wooden box. Inside were unsent letters, old photos, and a notebook of my mother. The notebook was filled with scribbles, broken confessions. Mom wrote about the mistakes, about the pain she had caused me and my brother. Those words made me both angry and heartbroken. I remembered my brother's room, which had been locked for a long time. I found the key in my mother's desk drawer. I opened the door and entered the dusty room. On the desk, an old diary lay quietly. My brother's diary told of the beatings, of the forced silence, of his dream of leaving this house. The last page stopped in 2005, the year he disappeared without a trace. The old house was no longer a home. It was a place that contained painful memories, unrevealed secrets. I stood in the middle of the room, feeling the weight of the past pressing down on my shoulders. But I knew that to find peace, I had to face the ghosts of the past. I lay on the old bed, the moonlight dimly shining through the broken window. The wind whistled through the cracks of the door, creating eerie sounds. Each sound seemed to evoke painful memories of my childhood. I remembered the days living in this house, where love seemed like a foreign concept. My mother was always cold, quiet, and often took her anger out on me and my younger brother. My father was absent, immersed in work and drinking. I remembered the first time my younger brother was brutally beaten by my mother just because he broke a cup. I called the police, hoping they would help. But when they arrived, my mother pretended that nothing had happened, and I was scolded for making up stories. From then on, I learned to be silent, not daring to speak up even when witnessing cruel acts. My younger brother gradually became sullen and quiet. He was often punished by my mother, and I could only stand by and watch helplessly. We had no one to share with, no place to run away. My brother, I, and no one else could explain why my mother became so cruel and ruthless. Some neighbors gossiped that because my father drank all day, did not earn much money, and could not help his wife and children, my mother felt hatred and took all her anger out on us. Love and maternal love seemed to be unable to overcome the demon in my mother. I do not know if my mother could be relieved and more comfortable when she caused physical and mental pain to my sisters like this. But for my sisters, it was always a dark past and haunted me every time I remembered it. No one said it, but my sisters and I always wanted to leave this house, leave the beatings and reproaches, to live like a normal person. I found my brother's diary in the locked room. The yellowed pages, scribbled, told of pain, fear, and dreams of leaving this house. The last page stopped in 2005, the year he disappeared without a trace. Reading those lines, I felt pain and guilt. I couldn't protect him, couldn't help him escape this hell. He was too young to have to endure such things. Perhaps he thought of the worst, even disappearing from this world, as long as he didn't have to live in this house anymore. I felt so sorry for him. Now I decided to find out the truth about my brother's disappearance. I started contacting old neighbors, hoping they could provide information. Some people remembered hearing screams at night, but no one dared to intervene. I also contacted the local police to see if there were any records related to my brother. They promised to check and contact me. The painful memories of my childhood gradually appeared, making me feel like my tongue was cut off, unable to speak. But now I was determined to find the truth, to free myself and my brother's soul. Oregon, a misty morning. I woke up in an old house, dim light filtering through the gaps in the curtains. The damp and cold air made me shiver. I decided to continue cleaning and explore the hidden corners of the house, hoping to find clues about my brother's disappearance. While cleaning, I discovered a small door behind the bookcase in the living room. The door led to a small, dark, dusty room. On the wall, scratches and fingernail marks were clearly visible, as if someone had tried to escape from this place. I felt a shiver at the thought of what might have happened here. In the room, I found some of my brother's old belongings, a broken toy car, a comic book with torn pages, and a small shirt. These items brought back memories of my brother, making me feel emotional. I discovered another diary, which seemed to be my mother's. In it, she wrote about her feelings of guilt and remorse after her brother disappeared. She admitted that she had treated us badly and wanted forgiveness. The scribbled, tearful notes made me feel heartbroken. I decided to visit my neighbor who lived near our house, hoping that she could provide information about my brother. She said that she had heard screams and cries coming from our house, but did not dare to intervene for fear of getting involved. She also remembered that after my brother disappeared, my mother became quiet and had little contact with the neighbors. The new discoveries made me feel pain and guilt. I began to understand that the wounds of the past were not just painful memories, but also deep scars in the soul. I decided to continue my journey to find the truth, to free myself and my brother's soul. Oregon, a cold, rainy afternoon. I was cleaning the back porch when a tall, thin man in an old leather jacket knocked lightly on the rusty wooden gate. He smiled awkwardly, extending his hand as I opened the door. Sorry to be so rude, but you're Isabel, right? I nodded. He shook my hand, a rough, calloused handshake, like small-town life. I'm Raymond. I used to fix your mother's electrical appliances. We've known each other for a long time. Raymond looked into the backyard, where the grass had grown ankle-high. He frowned, then looked back at me with a strange look. There was something, not curiosity, but hesitation. I think you should hear this. It's not easy to talk about, but if I don't, I think it will haunt me forever. Raymond said he had gone to fix the electrical outlet in the kitchen one afternoon in 2004. He was on the back porch when he heard the sound of a whip crackling through the air. Then the scream of a child, a boy, obviously. He walked around to the back door, just in time to see my mother beating the boy with the wire. He was cowering, curled up like a grasshopper. I felt my heart squeeze. I tried to intervene, but she looked at me, not scolding, not ashamed, just looking. For a long time, Mr. Raymond paused. I backed off. I was a coward. I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever told me that. And even though I lived in the same house, hadn't witnessed it. Raymond sat down on the porch steps. A light rain began to fall on his shoulders. I remained standing. The night before he disappeared, I saw your mother bury something in the backyard. I spun around. You said, buried? Raymond nodded, took out a cigarette, didn't light it. A wooden box, not a big one. I couldn't see clearly, but she dug the hole, covered it with soil herself. A week later, the boys stopped coming to school. I swallowed. My throat was dry. His words were like a saw blade. I went out into the garden and wondered, what did Mom bury? The back garden was the same, where Mom used to plant daisies every year. But I remembered that in 2005, she stopped planting them. I remembered because I asked, and she said coldly, "You don't have to let things bloom all the time." Now I understood what she meant in a different way. I took the shovel. I dug. Stroke by stroke, the rain fell harder. My hands were muddy. My hair was matted to my face. But I dug. Not because I was sure I would find anything, but because if I didn't, I would live the rest of my life in silence, like Mom. When the box appeared, I found it, about 60 centimeters deep, a closed wooden box, damp and rotten but intact. I opened the lid with trembling hands. What was inside? A school notebook, with my brother's name on it. A rusty pencil sharpener. A family photo torn in half. What remained was my mother's face. And a piece of paper folded in 4. The handwriting was slanted. If anyone finds this box, I'm sorry, because I don't have the courage to run far away. I bent down, didn't cry, didn't scream, just dropped the shovel. That night, I sat in front of the mirror in my mother's room. The room was still the same, neat, clean, without a trace of the cruelty she had sown. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time. And for the first time, I saw my mother's eyes. Not really, but a feeling. I used to hate her, but now I was afraid. I was like her, knowing how to be silent, knowing how to hide, knowing how to tell myself I did it because I love you. I used to thank my mother for raising me, because she worked hard, not leaving me behind. But now I understand. Sometimes, the price of existence is too great. And silence, what I used to think was peace, is actually a rope that strangles children like me and my sister. I survived. My sister did not. Silence can save people, but it can also kill people. I don't know if my mother really killed my sister, but I know she killed the hope in her, and a part of me. I need to move on. But first, I have to bring light into this house. Starting from the garden, the place that used to be the grave of memories. Seattle, 1 week after leaving Oregon. I returned to my small apartment in Queen and the familiar red brick building. Everything was as if nothing had happened. Colleagues emailed to ask about project deadlines. My ex-boyfriend left flowers by the door. Welcome home, as if my absence was just a short vacation. I lived as usual. Only I knew I was no longer me. Mirror, and the strange gaze. I looked in the mirror every morning, as I had for years. But lately, I had not combed my hair so carefully. I stopped, looked into my own eyes, and I couldn't stand what I saw. Not because I was getting old. Not because I was tired, but because those eyes were cold, hard, unfeeling. It was like I was looking at my mother. Once in a conference room, I was working, a new assistant made a mistake in the design. She fumbled an apology, speaking in a small, trembling voice. I reacted immediately. Cold, sharp. The words came out of her mouth. If you're not up to the task here, maybe we need someone else. I saw her face turn pale. And I saw a little girl, once me, standing in front of my mother. At that moment, I threw up in the bathroom. I began to realize that I was in control. I set a Wi-Fi password every week. I scheduled every call 5 days in advance. I felt unsafe when my ex-boyfriend wanted to sleep over accidentally. I hated surprises. I hated intimacy. I hated that someone could know what I was thinking. I became a mother. Not with words, with walls. My first therapy session. I walked into the therapy office, where there was the smell of lavender and soft lo-fi music. Soft leather chairs. The woman across from me was Dr. Rachel. The first thing she said was, "Isabel, you protected yourself so well. But when nothing threatened you, you still kept that shield up. Why?" I couldn't answer. I just cried. Like a child. The mirror doesn't reflect, because I didn't dare look closely. All my life, I thought I had escaped my mother by running away. But no, I carried her with me in my blood, in my voice, in the way I treated myself. I used to think, I will never be like her. But denial is not enough. You have to look straight. You have to diffuse. You have to choose another way. I am not healed. But for the first time in my life, I am starting. Not to forgive my mother, but to forgive myself for staying silent, for continuing the cycle, for living forever as someone afraid of being seen. Oregon, a week after starting therapy. After my third meeting with Dr. Rachel, I booked a plane ticket back to Oregon, not to visit my mother's grave, but to dig up the bottom of what she left behind, the unnamed truth. I filed a request to re-examine my brother's missing persons file. The town police were initially puzzled. The case had been cold for nearly 20 years. But I had every reason. The diary. The buried box. Raymond the witness. And I said, very softly, if necessary, I will go public with the whole thing to the press. The next day, the file was reopened. The back garden excavation. It was a cold morning, the fog as thick as condensed milk. The police cordoned off the back garden. A forensics car was parked in the driveway. I stood on the porch, staring at the patch of dirt between two daisies, the spot where my mother had left the flower bed empty in 2005. After 3 hours, they stopped. I wasn't allowed to get close. But the inspector turned around and said, "We found biological evidence. Bone fragments. Rotten fabric. Not animals." I stood still, my fists clenched until they bled. No crying. No screaming. No need. I knew. The local attorney told me I had the right to sue. I could reinvestigate my mother, even though she was dead. I could sue the entire system that had ignored her disappearance. But I refused. I didn't want revenge on the dead. I wanted to protect the living. The Wooden Box Foundation was born. I returned to Seattle, took a year off from work, used all my savings to start a non-profit, The Wooden Box, from the image of the little box buried in the backyard. Its mission: to provide counseling and therapy for people who had been in toxic families. No legal documents. No conditions. Just say, "I'm not okay. We listen. We believe you." A letter to my brother. I wrote, knowing I would never send it. "Dear brother, I don't know where you went that year, but I know you tried to live. And because of that, you deserve to be remembered, to be believed, to be loved. I'm sorry for not having the courage when I was little, but now I dare to speak. And maybe I forgive my mother too, not because she deserves it, but because I don't want to carry her in my heart anymore." At first, I was determined to find the truth, to find my poor little brother. But with the evidence the police found, I thought my brother had suffered too much. The one who suffered and the one who caused the suffering were both gone. Why my mother did that, how my brother disappeared, all were mysteries. But all should be buried. I will still hold his image in my mind, and help and protect more people so that no one has to suffer silently like my brother. Sometimes, You have to choose again, where you can breathe, live, be yourself. If you were a child who was forced to be silent, told that it's not that bad, forced to stand outside a full meal, then please remember, you have the right to speak. You have the right to leave. You have the right to start over. Everyone has the right to live, to be happy in their own way. If home is a stopover, not a destination, then don't stop, keep going, and there will be a place where you belong. The price of silence, of suffering, is very painful, very disadvantaged, can haunt us and create scratches on us for life. Only you can save yourself. Be brave, be strong, step forward, towards a place with a bright pink sunrise.